It's my birthday. But I don't feel like crying, so I don't need to sing that part. I'm just waiting for Hans to join, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our retreat on day 2, our fabulous schedule. I don't have it in front of me right now. We've had a fun morning at the climbing gym. And, oh, here's Hans.
Hi there.
Hello.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish you happy birthday on this call yet? I'm sorry I got in a bit late.
No, no, you're the first one.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sarah. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And you're trying to put your little one down and she's not going to sleep right now, or what's happening?
I think she's asleep now, but it was taking a little bit.
Okay. So I just caught that, yeah, we're here today to go through day 2 a little bit and answer any questions for anybody who's interested in the retreat. We still do have a couple of spots left in the retreat, February 23rd to 25th. Great opportunity for anybody in the Calgary, Edmonton, Kelowna zone to do some winter work on your relationship or intimacy skills. So do you want to run us through what we're doing on day 2, Sarah?
Yeah, I don't have the schedule in front of me, so I'm going to do it off the top of my head.
Okay, well, maybe I have it in front of me. So let me just, I'll read it and then you can comment, okay?
Okay.
So on the Saturday, previously Sarah and I talked about what's going to happen on the day 1, the evening before. And that's posted on Sarah's Reels. It's also, I think it's posted to my YouTube channel. You can send us a direct message if you want that. For the Saturday, the February the 24th, we've got a 10 a.m. start. We're going to do something with the men separate from the women. Later on in the morning, we'll have a Kundalini yoga session. That's what I bring to this. Then Sarah will be doing afternoon, not after lunch, but afternoon. Sarah will be doing some Tantra practices with us. Then we'll have a lunch break, but they'll be working that as well. Then we'll have everybody together circle. We'll do some movement, contact improv, and that's going to segue into something a little more structured that I will lead that's related to Argentine tango. Then we have some interesting homework where you'll go out on a dinner date. Then we're going to come back and Sarah's going to lead us through a cacao ceremony. So that's a very full day on Saturday. Lots of things for you to enjoy in the moment, but also to take home with you. Sarah, do you want to talk about what you might be doing with the women first thing in the morning at 10 o'clock on Saturday? What you're thinking right now?
I don't even have that planned yet. I think it'll also depend on what sort of happens Friday night, based on who shows up and what the energies are doing. That'll sort of guide our practice Saturday morning, and I'll also open it up for the women to share what they've come with or what they're coming for, and how we can work together to like address some of those needs. as women, and then as a group maybe later in the circle.
Okay. For my part, the what I want to do with the men is quite an informal thing. It's basically to gather at a space outside of the studio, at a coffee shop, actually. One of the things that's really important to me is that we as men aren't good at talking to each other about the deeper stuff. I mean, we aren't generally raised to know how to do this, and we often rely on our feminine counterparts. So in this case, it would be, you know, the woman in our life who we're either married to or have a long-term commitment to, who tends to be the social convener, tends to keep our relationships alive. So the idea behind this coffee shop meeting is just to demonstrate how some of what we can do as leaders in our really informal men's communities is take each other for coffee, whether it's one man or two men or three, and sit down, have some coffee, talk about some things that are up. And they don't have to be like immediately deep things, but just to get the conversation open and to create a space that it's okay to talk about anything. Right now in my community, I'm hosting with another man every twice a month. We host a men walking group, and it's very informal. He's got a young son that he carries in his backpack half the time. The other half of the time he's toddling around, and we're kind of following him. We each have dogs, and other men are invited to bring their kids and dogs, and we just get together. And in the course of that, conversation happens, and it's not just about hockey or soccer, although that has come up. But it's about things like being a father, being a husband, being a son, being a brother, and the kind of like what the other day a guy was talking about. You know, he's got an early teenage daughter, and just some of the things that are coming up, and luckily, you know, I've raised or was raised by daughters, and I know what it's, you know, what it's like to live with a girl who loves to watch horror movies. And for me, that's just like, what the, I don't understand this, but for her, it's big stuff. And for this man, it was a confusing and interesting kind of thing. And so to go back to our Saturday, February 24th, it's just an informal place to sit down, talk about some things, and to make it a little less scary than what a retreat or a circle might be. I know a lot of us guys are really very, very careful and very protective of revealing ourselves. So we're just going to try something out there, and maybe it'll encourage some of these guys to then follow up and in subsequent weeks to host their own morning coffees with guys.
I think that's great. And that's something actually my husband does. He goes for breakfast with some of the men in the community there, how they connect.
Mm-hmm.
Important. Mm-hmm. And part of what I'm probably going to bring up with the women, I know we're talking about intimacy, and a lot of the weekend will be relating physically, not around sex, but in at least one of our women's circles, I am going to bring up the topic of sex, and especially to address like the changes that happen in perimenopause and menopause, and how that affects us physically, emotionally, and relationally, and then how we can work with that. And that happens also in postpartum. It's sort of like the same sort of hormonal shifts. So I think it's important to talk about sex. So I will be bringing it up.
Well, for a lot of us guys, that's not sex, you know, like that's something else. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of that as well in our shared sessions, because lots of times when we as men talk about sex, it's like this, women's experience is this dark, like dark in terms of unknown. It's like, I don't know. And I can read books and that helps, although most of us men are not reading books about this stuff. And most of us men are not having these conversations with our, sexual partners unless there's a crisis. And then it becomes like this crisis conversation. So I like what you like, for you, this was part of your female, your feminine sexuality. And for us to wake up to that, to go like, oh, like this is a reality for lots of us guys that we don't really clue into. Some of us might be aware that there's times in your moon cycle and your menstrual cycle that you're more receptive to us sexually, and we love that. But why isn't it all the time? you know and isn't this just a matter of will? Like, if so these are things that I understand you need to talk about that with the women, but it's something that I'll broach with the men, but I really want us to have that bigger conversation about it as well, because we have so much to learn from you. And most women, I don't think, understand how afraid we are to ask those questions or just even venture into that dark continent.
Well, I think even just basic knowledge of the men have a 24-hour hormone cycle, and the women have like a 28-day hormone cycle. And then that shifts too once you hit menopause. And so to understand the differences, and that it isn't just like get up and go, let's do this. It is very different for the women.
I'm reading a book right now, Waking Up to the Dark, Ancient Wisdom for a Sleepless Age by Clark Strand. And there's an interesting thread that brought me there. It starts with you. It starts with a conversation we had about sacred womb a long time ago, which you pointed me towards Kimberly Ann Johnson, which led me to Katie Dove, who I'll be interviewing and doing a workshop with online, a virtual workshop with in February. And she mentioned this book, and I start reading it, and it's like there's this circadian rhythm which affects all of us, and how just not having real dark, how that affects us, and then just talking about how we used to have pretty well defined first and second sleeps at night, and there was this period in between where all kinds of things would happen, including being sexual, physically sexual with each other, at a time when we're not fully awake, but we're fully open. Anyway, those are things that we may or may not get to talk about. But my encouragement to anybody listening to this right now is start going to bed a couple hours before you usually do, and see what, try it for 2 weeks and see what happens, and see how your life changes.
Yeah, and then notice hormones in the morning. Because if you get a good dark sleep, the hormones should replenish better and be more active in the morning.
Right.
So yeah, that's why morning sex can be really good for both parties.
Okay, so we've talked about the morning circles. So then we're going to do some Kundalini yoga, and right now I'm teaching a weekly yoga plus tango for lovers, which is really focused on Kundalini yoga practices to open ourselves to vulnerability, to experiencing and holding space for our own vulnerability, and in doing that, becoming a little more skilled at doing that for another person. And so that's on the masculine side of like holding that space and being tender and sensitive to whatever might be happening on the feminine side. And on the feminine side, it's an invitation to surrender into being held, being surrender into allowing themselves to be vulnerable, which is in itself an interesting kind of leading, because the more you lead into your own vulnerability, the more you try to hold that space, and the more you lead into that, the more I'm called to go deeper into holding that space, which brings me all kinds of energy and nourishment I want, but that I'm often unknowing or unwilling to go to without the feminine being willing to support. So, so that's what our Kundalini practice will be focused on. And then Sarah, you're leading
Tantra.
Tantra.
Yeah, I mean Tantra slash whatever shows up. So a lot of it might be breath work, might be conscious touch, it might be looking at the chakras and seeing where we're out of balance or in balance with our partner specifically, and how to even watch that in relationship, and how to like attune or know the differences to know how to communicate better. So there's lots of different practices that we're gonna get to, and lots that we won't get to. And then just simple things too, just like holding space together. And that will, I think, because it is such a full weekend, I'm going to offer lots of space and stillness to even just drop in and to absorb some of the knowledge that we're sharing too, and like let that land in the body. And I know like everyone picks up at different rates. So some people get it more in their brain, some people get it more in their body. So we'll have to, attune and go slowly. And that's also what's nice about the dance piece and the movement pieces, is there'll be less talking and more getting it into the body. And then for the cacao portion at the evening, we may or may not do practices.
Let's talk about the dinner date before that.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that for anybody listening to this, I mean, Sarah and we're massaging what this schedule will look like. And some of that changes as we have these and other conversations. And like she said, it will change with who's there, but also what's happening. So, and this is part of this whole thing about intimacy, like we're becoming intimate with you. You're demonstrating as a student or as a participant your vulnerability, and then it's up to us to like, how do we hold space and guide that? So we're also practicing exactly what we're going to be teaching. So everything you hear here is just, our first thoughts, and some of that will change. Yeah, dinner. So after the Tantra, we're going to do a movement piece. There will be some wide open contact improv that Sarah will lead, and then I'm going to start leading it or guiding that with a bit more structure into what I know from Argentine tango, which is, to my mind, the best expression of polarities, masculine, feminine polarities, lead, follow polarities that I know in partner dancing. And I've done a lot of partner dancing. And then you're going to be invited to do something you might do a lot of, go for dinner. Except it'll be a little bit different, because we're going to be inviting you to continue the polarity of lead, follow, initiate, surrender, and to be really mindful of how you are embodying the kinds of things that you may have picked up during the day, and playing with that, and using your dinner date as a place to not just eat some food and not just look at each other and enjoy each other, but to become more intimate. And something that you can do every day. I mean, you probably share a meal with this person every day, and how can that be a place of intimacy rather than just habitual calorie consumption? And now over to you, Cal.
Well, just to build on what you were saying, one of our previous conversations, you talked about like even just pulling out a chair and opening a door, and those simple practices you can do. So I'm really excited to hear how that goes. So we'll share when we come back for the cacao piece how it went, what was easy, what was hard, what was interesting, what they'd like to try to do in the future. And then, yeah, for cacao, we may or may not do some practices because it's a heart opener, right? So it's, again, we're going to end the day blasting our hearts open to connect even further. So I might just leave it pretty open-ended because it will have been a very long day and a half already for the couples to do what they need to do, either in the space or out of space. Or another idea was to have like a sound healing session, which could also be really, really grounding and nourishing. So I haven't decided anything about that yet, but I think that would be maybe very nice for the day. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this, Sarah. And again, I'm really grateful that you've invited me to your community to host this. I'm really looking forward to this. So how many weeks away are we now? Like 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away, 4 weeks, I guess.
Well, it's a Monday, the 23rd. We're the 23rd today. So yeah, probably 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
More in a bit, yeah. 20, 30 days, I guess. 31 days, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions for anybody who's watching?
Yeah, we had quite a few people jump in and jump out. For whoever's still here, if you have questions for us about the retreat or just about any of the work that we do, we're happy to give you a private one-on-one.
And we're going to be doing a 1-hour virtual workshop on January 30th next week, where you'll get a taste of some of how we work and some of what we offer. There is if you register through Sarah, you can get the early bird $11 rather than the full $111 cost of the virtual workshop. And if you're a subscriber, a premium or a premium plus subscriber to the newsletter or book that I'm writing as chapters, there's no charge. And if you're registered in one of Sarah's programs, it's no charge as well. And if you're registered in the workshop or the retreat, there's no charge. So that's January 30th.
And we'll be doing them monthly.
Yeah.
We'll skip the months of, I believe, July and August.
Yeah.
Summer's always crazy, but it's monthly for the whole year. So you can also sign up for that and join us for a lovely tune-up every month.
Okay. Well.
Yes. Well, thanks for the chat.
Thank you. And have a beautiful birthday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.